Welcome to Dungeon Academics. My name is Thomas and I will be your instructor. This video introduces a subclass I have written, the Path of the Trollsbane, a barbarian subclass written for the 2024 edition of Dungeons & Dragons. I have yet to play 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons in the 2024 version. I've got plenty of experience with the 2014 version. I'm very much looking forward to giving it a try at some point. The vast majority of rules that have changed for the new version I like. There's a few little things that I'm not a big fan of, but I'm sure I can work around those. But I wanted to make a subclass so I can play a class I've always wanted to play, but never really found the right fit for me. I like the idea of barbarians in concept. Conan the Barbarian is a great film. I actually have the book that it was based on in my bag at the moment. I need to start reading it. I've borrowed it from the library. I've played barbarian adjacent classes in other gaming systems, but something about the 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Barbarian just didn't do it for me. And I've written this subclass to try and make something that I would enjoy playing. Now, I had 3 primary goals when writing this subclass. The first is thematic, to create a character that's great to tell a story with. There's lots of good role-playing opportunities, lots of good opportunities to be connected to any plot the Dungeon Master wants to create, and something where telling your story is part of the character. I normally play charisma-based characters because I love that storytelling and roleplay aspect of the game, and I think at the moment barbarians don't interact with that very well with the rule mechanic. So I wanted to create a character where there's an opportunity to tell stories, but also one where the mechanics encouraged you to tell stories. So the second element is to introduce some fun mechanics that make the character play the way I like to play. And the way I like to play is by doing lots of different things in a turn, by not always attacking the same character, and by breaking the concept of action economy. Action economy is how you are rewarded by the game for doing the most efficient thing. And the most efficient thing is picking a target and then everyone dogpiling that target until it's gone and then moving as a group onto the next target. I don't find that very satisfying in games. I've enjoyed characters where you're supposed to run around and hit different things on the same turn. You're supposed to engage in different enemies, with different enemies than the rest of your party, and have everyone's efforts spread out. I find that more fun, even if it is less efficient. So if we can change Dungeons & Dragons to make ignoring action economy the better option, we will encourage people to play in a way that is more fun, at least in my opinion. Yours may vary. And the third element I wanted to introduce is an idea of escalation. At the moment, Dungeons & Dragons is primarily an attritional game. You start the day as powerful as you're going to be, and then as you use up your resources and your abilities, you become less powerful. And therefore, the more stuff you do, the greater the benefit of taking a rest, either a short rest or a long rest. I don't like this idea. I think there should be some pressure to keep going and a balance. As you use some resources, other resources or abilities become more powerful. And therefore there's this little meta game going on inside saying, I've used up these resources, I only have half my hit points left. But this ability is getting more and more powerful. Maybe we should continue. In fact, with a barbarian being the tanky class, you are already motivated to try and keep the rest of your party alive. So if you have an ability that's getting more powerful through the day, you don't want your party to stop for a rest. Therefore, you are further motivated to protect them and help them keep going. And I really like this synergy of needs, that you're the driving force saying, no, let's keep going. Let's do one more bandit camp. Let's raid the next dungeon chamber over. Let's just keep going. And I think that's fantastic. I think that could really help with Dungeons and Dragons. So those are the three driving pressures for me making this subclass. An opportunity to tell stories and roleplay, mechanics that support the way I like to play, and a push to keep going. So, the Trollsbane Barbarian. What are my primary inspirations? Well, to be absolutely honest, this guy. That's Gotrek Gurnisson, the Trollslayer from Warhammer Fantasy. Trollslayers are a unit from the Dwarf Army in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and I believe it continues on into Age of Sigmar, though I'm not as familiar with that. And Trollslayers seek out the largest and most deadly enemy they can find and challenge it to single combat, to seek an honourable death to atone for some unforgivable transgression in their past. And this series of books is 19 books long, about this guy trying to find something that can kill him and him beating them up every single time. This book is from 1999, though this is not the first appearance of Gotrek Gurnisson. Gotrek Gurnisson was created as a character by William King in several short stories, but in 1999 they were compiled into an anthology, the first of the Slayer series of books. But Gotrek Gurnisson himself is based on this guy from the cover of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay from 1986. So the Trollslayer as a roleplay character has a very long pedigree. In fact, there is a Trollslayer class or career path in this book. So I decided to bring the Trollsbane Barbarian into Dungeons & Dragons. Now, there are many reasons you could become a Trollsbane Barbarian. There is the classic atoning for some sin in your past through death in honourable combat. That's absolutely fine. It could be that you are on some streak of vengeance against whatever monsters razed your village, attacked your town, did something terrible in your past, and this streak of vengeance is continuing. As you kill this one monster, you then vow that no one else should go through the same loss that you've done, and you continue your rampage. Or it could just be the case that you are a glory hound, that you seek a name for yourself, and you know that by finding the most powerful adversaries and defeating them, you can be a celebrated champion. So, redemption, vengeance, or glory, those are three great character hooks to have a character start with. They would give you a reason to go out adventuring, which is one of the most important things to have, and it doesn't preclude you with working with other people whose desires align with your needs. So there's an opportunity to work in a team as well. Another major source of inspiration for the Trollsbane Barbarian is the Dungeon Soup animated series on YouTube. One of the main characters in Dungeon Soup is this annoyingly resistant barbarian who is hunting down monsters and seems perfectly positioned to ignore or resist their most dangerous abilities. There's one episode I really like, and I'll link this one in the description, where the barbarian takes on Medusa and she's trying to petrify him, and he's like, yeah, as soon as you blink, I'm going to flex, and I turn back to flesh. And he's just so annoyingly persistent that he ends up defeating the Medusa through the power of his own muscles, which I find quite amusing. So there's a couple of sources of inspiration, but clearly Gottfried Gurnason is the primary one. So, the Trollsbane Barbarian. I'm going to go through the rule set that I've made. There will be a PDF for this subclass linked in the description, so please do check that out. I'm not going to read absolutely everything that I've written, but I am going to go through the main points. It's a little bit light on art at the moment. I like having art in my documents. Unfortunately, I have very little artistic skill myself, and I do not have a pet artist in a cage to assist me with. I would ask my sons to help, but it appears they have inherited my talent or lack thereof. I have one piece of artwork that I have drawn myself, and it ain't great, but that's the absolute bleeding edge of what I'm capable of artistically. So yeah, as I play this, hopefully some people that I play with might be inspired to draw it for me. And if you end up liking this character and want to give it a go and end up creating some art for it, and you want it added to the subclass, I would be more than happy to add your vision just to put some nice creative bits of art in the subclass. So that's an open invitation to send me Trollsbane Barbarian inspired artwork so I can add it to the subclass document, and you will be accredited appropriately. Okay, so the Trollsbane Barbarian. There are 4 main rules that the Trollsbane Barbarian gets, and each of those rules gains some extra notes as you level up. Not every rule gets better every subclass level up, but most of them do. And what I've decided to do is, instead of laying out at 3rd level you get these abilities, at 6th level you get these abilities, and at 10th level you get these abilities, I've laid it out by ability type. So here's your first ability, and this is what you get at level 3, this is what you get at 6, this is what you get at 10, this is what you get at 14. I think it's perhaps easier to follow that way when you have abilities that are leveling up rather than new abilities when you level up your subclass. Okay, so what are the 4 rules that I've included for the Trollsbane? Well, they can be summarized as Entangled Fate. So with Entangled Fate, you pick a creature that becomes your nemesis. This is the monster or the adversary that you are hunting down. You're going to get some bonuses to track it and spot it. You're going to get some resistances against damage from it, and you're going to get some bonuses to damage it. Now, here's the most important thing. It has to be a worthy target. You can't declare that 3rd rat over there is my nemesis. You have to pick a suitable target, and the GM has the discretion to say, no, that's not a worthy target for you. So picking a nemesis and entangling your fate is the first rule. And the next is a doom shared. A doom shared is a mechanical rule that encourages you to attack something that isn't your nemesis. If I'm giving you bonuses to attack your nemesis, then action economy says that's all you should be doing. A doom shared is, actually, no, I'm going to give you a bonus if you attack something else as well. And essentially what you're doing is you are intimidating and threatening your nemesis with acts of violence against its minions. If it doesn't have any minions around, you don't get to use this rule. It's just a straight fight. But if there are minions around, every time you can damage one of them, you'll get a bonus to damage their boss as well. After that, there's something called Violent Crescendo. This is an ability that powers up through the day as you take out your nemesis. If there are no nemesis around, then this ability doesn't count, and it resets every time you take a long rest and can go down every time you take a short rest. So this is an encouragement to just keep going. Now, it's quite a powerful ability when it is fully powered up, But when it's fully powered up, what you're saying is, I've already had 6 boss encounters today, survived them all, and I'm not taking a rest. So that's a very powerful ability, but it's going to be very difficult to power up. And by the time it is powered up, pretty much everyone's going to take a long rest. So it's up to you to explain why it's worthwhile keeping. The fourth and final ability is called a Tale of Woe. It is a storytelling ability that gives you advantages when you are performing or persuading or intimidating people by talking about your conquests and the monsters that you have slain. So those are the 4 flavours of abilities that I've added in. I'd like to go into a little bit more detail on each one. Let's start with Entangled Fate. So this is activated at level 3. At level 3, you may choose to entangle your fate with an enemy, making it your nemesis. Your nemesis is an enemy you have pledged to destroy or die trying. The creature must be one you can see, or a creature whose tracks or effects on the world you have observed, even if you are unaware of what exactly this creature is. Okay, so a fight starts and there's a horde of goblins and there's the goblin chieftain, and you know right away that that goblin chieftain is the one that you're going to be taking down. You look it in the eye and I'm coming for you, pal. And you can declare it your nemesis. On the other hand, if you're out of combat and you see evidence of a monster attacking a village, you see mysterious tracks in the forest, you hear the call of some creature echoing through the mountains, you can decide, oh, that sounds like a worthy foe. I'm going to go after this. Now, here's the thing. The Dungeon Master has final say on whether you can declare it your nemesis. The guidelines that I'm putting in is that its challenge rating should be at least half your character level. And there's Dungeon Master discretion to change this as necessary. If there is no worthy foe to be a nemesis in an encounter, then the Dungeon Master can say this isn't honourable or glorious enough for you, and that's fine. On the other hand, if there's a pack of wolves led by a direwolf, the Dungeon Master might go, yeah, that big wolf, that's the threat. You can call that your nemesis. This is really a sort of mechanical and storytelling mechanic that the player and the Dungeon Master must sort of work together with. Okay, so what benefits do you get when something is your nemesis? Well, firstly, you can now use your strength for skill checks to track, spot, or identify this creature. Also, if it tries to sneak up on you, your passive perception will get a bonus against this one creature, a creature that is your nemesis only. Now, there's an interesting idea here. If something is sneaking up on you and your Dungeon Master asks you your passive perception and tells you that you get a bonus to it, that kind of gives the game away that it's your nemesis sneaking up on you. So the Dungeon Master can choose to add this bonus without telling you. He might just say, what's your regular passive perception? And then the Dungeon Master will add +5 without telling you. Or you could say, hey, my passive perception is 12, but it's 18 against my nemesis. And the Dungeon Master will tell you whether or not you've seen the creature they're talking about. Another small bonus you get at level 3 is that you are slightly better than normal if someone is assisting you when you're tracking or trying to identify your nemesis and so on. If you find yourself in a situation where someone can give you advantage, they can add their ability score to your check as well. So if you're trying to track down your nemesis and it's, say, a survival roll, let's say you're proficient in survival as well, you can roll the d20 plus your strength plus your proficiency bonus. And if you get assistance from someone who's also proficient and the DM allows it, you roll with advantage, and you can also add their, I think it's wisdom for survival. So this creates a situation where you are slightly better than normal if you have someone assisting you. And this is to emphasize the fact that this is your thing. The party is tracking down your nemesis, so the Trollsbane really is the one that's taking the lead on this. Now, in all other circumstances, the ranger or the rogue, they're the skill monkey that's going to be fantastic for tracking down things in general. But for the nemesis, you're the one that's going to have the best shot. And if they're helping, that makes it even better. One other thing, at level 3, you score crits on your nemesis on a 19 or 20, and any effects that normally only happen on a 20 will also happen on a 19. So you become a little bit better at fighting. You're mostly better at tracking it, finding it, not being ambushed by it, and a little bit better at fighting it. Now, there is one tricky bit here, and this is the idea that your nemesis is a specific creature, and if you don't encounter that creature, you don't get your benefits. Now, originally I was going to limit it so you could only have one nemesis at a time, and mechanically I think that's, and thematically I think that's fair. But to take away the benefits of this primary ability for 5 out of 6 fights didn't quite feel right. So I added a rule that said if your nemesis is not present in a combat encounter, then you may choose a worthy target to be your nemesis for this fight. And at the end of the fight, if your original nemesis and the secondary nemesis are both still alive, so you haven't managed to kill the secondary nemesis, it got away, you must decide which one you're going to pursue and keep on as your nemesis. So you then have to drop one. Now, if you or your party kill the secondary nemesis, that's fine. Your primary nemesis is kept, but it means that you get to use your cool subclass rule in most combats. And again, there has to be a worthy target. You can't just randomly pick a creature, go, that third goblin with a blue spear, that's my nemesis. And the other thing is that if you kill your nemesis in combat, or your nemesis is killed in the combat, you can't go on and then go, okay, I'll pick a different nemesis, like the goblin with the orange bandana, that's my new nemesis. Unless something joins the combat that is particularly worthy of being your nemesis, you only get one per fight. And this comes down to the Dungeon Master's discretion. It's perfectly acceptable for them to say, no, there's nothing else here that can be your nemesis. I'm just envisaging a situation where you are fighting a horde of kobolds and the kobold shaman is your secondary nemesis, and you slay it, and then a dragon wormling turns up. And you go, oh, that seems worthy. Can I call that my new nemesis? And in that situation, yeah, the Dungeon Master can say, yep, okay, you can have another nemesis. That requires a bit of cooperation between the player and the Dungeon Master, and it's a cooperative game, so I don't have a problem with that. The writing for this particular bit of ruling it's not perfect. I'm going to end up probably revising it several times, especially as I playtest it and I get feedback from other players. It's really difficult to write a rule that is clear and concise. If you want to make it clear, that it requires more explanation and therefore more words. And I don't want to be too wordy. I don't want to have too many big blocks of text in a subclass. It should be concise, quick, and easy to understand. So I'm going to be working on refining the language. But we've got a version 1. I just wanted to share it with you. Okay, what else does Entangle Fate give you? That's at level 3. At level 6, you get some defensive abilities. Firstly, you get to use... let's have a look. You get to use strength saves instead of other ability scores if your nemesis forces you to make a save. Maybe they have an attack with a special effect. Maybe they cast a spell on you. If it requires a save, you get to use your strength save because you're just that strong. Mental willpower is nothing compared to your physical muscle power. So you get to use strength saves, again, only against your nemesis. In addition to that, you can ignore one type of damage resistance from your nemesis, or if it has a damage immunity, you can knock that down to a resistance. Mechanically, barbarians have a bit of a problem here because they normally are a bit of a one-trick pony in combat. They don't have a range of spells with different damage types. And if you go up against an adversary that's immune or resistant to the only kind of damage that you do, that's gonna kind of suck, especially if it's your nemesis. If you come up to your nemesis and you find that it's immune to everything you can do to it, that really is going to put a crimp on your day. So because this subclass is all about hunting down your nemesis and dooming it, I think that bypassing a resistance or downgrading an immunity to damage makes sense in this context. And by the same token, at level 6, you can pick one damage type your nemesis does and say, okay, I'm going to be resistant to that. Now, barbarians are already resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage when they're raging. That's great. But if you've picked a red dragon to be your nemesis, you can go, and it uses its fiery breath on you, you can go, actually, yeah, I'm going to be resistant to fire damage as well. So you can pick this as you need it. It doesn't take up a reaction, but it's a very limited thing. It's one damage type, and it only affects the damage from that creature. You might be resistant to fire damage from that red dragon, but you aren't immune to fire damage from the fireballs. Resistant, I should say. You aren't resistant to fire damage from the cultists throwing fireballs at you. So it's not even a full resistance. It's resistance against one damage type from one specific target. Again, it has to be your nemesis. So level 6, that gives you some interesting abilities. At level 10, this Entangled Fate rule powers up again. If your nemesis inflicts a status effect on you, such as prone, poisoned, stunned, etc., or tries to move you against your will, and you do not get a save to ignore this effect, you can make a strength save to ignore it. And the Dungeon Master should give an appropriate DC. One of the things I really like about the 24 edition of Dungeons & Dragons is that all the monster stat blocks have the proficiency bonus included. So if you need to make a relevant DC, it's actually quite easy. You go 8 plus the proficiency bonus, plus an appropriate ability score modifier from the creature. So you've now got a chance to ignore these auto effects. There are lots of things in Dungeons & Dragons that can inflict a status without a save in the 2024 version, and this gives you a chance of resisting them. Again, only against your nemesis. Okay, what else have we got here? Oh, at level 10, you don't give up advantage on attacks when using Brutal Strike against your nemesis. The Brutal Strike feature is a great feature added to the 2024 Barbarian, where you get a little bit of additional damage and you can inflict a status effect on an enemy. What you have to do is you have to give up your advantage to do it, though. Not giving up your advantage against your nemesis is just a little bit of a boost. And remember, you are a specialist monster hunter going after your target. You are a little bit better against that target, but not anything else. And finally, at level 14, when you make any ability, skill, attack roll, or saving throw involving your nemesis, you can increase your proficiency by D6. And this includes if you have, say, Great Weapon Master, and you add your proficiency bonus to your damage. So you've got a plus D6. That would be a plus D6 on hit rolls, a plus D6 on saving throws, plus D6 on skill checks to track it, or saving throws to avoid its traps or lair effects. So this is quite a powerful boost, plus D6 on all of these. Remember, it's only against your nemesis, and this is a level 14 subclass ability. At level 14, I checked other subclasses just to make sure this wasn't too overpowered. Your Path of the World Tree Barbarian is now teleporting over the battlefield every turn. I think that's a fantastic ability. I think this is on par with that. Moon Druid also has a teleport with an ally rule at level 14. I love that idea. So I don't think adding a d6 to attack rolls, saving throws, ability checks, anything that uses your proficiency bonus at level 14 I don't think that's bad. I think that's great. Only affects your nemesis and gives you a little bit of a boost against that one creature. So Entangled Fate is your main subclass thing. You pick a nemesis and you're just better at dealing with it. Okay, the next one was a Doom Shared. So a Doom Shared gives you a reason to attack the stooges, the minions of your nemesis. So what you do at the start of your turn, you pick a target and go, okay, that's the stooge. That's who I'm going for. Now, if you're already in melee with your nemesis, you can move up to half your movement speed, make an attack against the stooge, and move back to where you were before. And this move doesn't trigger attacks of opportunity because you start and end up in the same place. This isn't an opportunity for you to run away. This isn't an opportunity for you to reposition yourself to attack a different preferred enemy. This is you going over to one of the minions, giving it a whack, and then coming back against your nemesis. If you're not already in combat with your nemesis, you just attack the stooge and then have to get to your nemesis. That's fine. Okay, what bonuses do you get? If you hit your stooge, then the next hit that you do against your nemesis this turn will have a bit of a boost to its damage. What you do is you roll double the damage dice and you pick the highest half. Now, mechanically, I was unsure exactly how to work this. One option would be to give you a re-roll, so you can re-roll all your damage dice. That could work. The other is to roll 2 sets of damage dice and pick the highest. That requires a bit of additional cognitive load. The other would be to split all the damage dice into pairs, roll each pair, pick the highest, and then add them up. I think that's a bit more cognitive load as well. I like the idea of just having a big handful of dice, rolling them all, and picking the best set. So for example, if you had d12 plus 2d6 damage for this attack, you'd roll 2d12 and 4d6, and you'd pick the best d12 and you'd pick the best 2d6s. That's a way to do it. So this gives you a damage boost to your nemesis if you can hit a secondary target along the way. Okay. Now this ability kicks in at level 6. Why level 6? Because you only have one attack up until level 5. There's no point giving it to you earlier because you only have one attack. You can't hit the stooge and then hit your nemesis because you only have one attack. So at level 6 this kicks in. At level 10 it powers up. If you kill the stooge or score a crit against them, it doesn't count as using up your attack. So at that point you have 2 attacks and maybe a bonus action attack as well. If you kill the stooge, reduce it to 0 hit points, or score a crit against it, you still have both attacks and or that bonus action attack as well. So if you do really, really well, you get a bit of a bonus and you still get the second attack against your nemesis. So that's a reason to not just attack the same target anymore all the time. You are now deliberately wanting to attack 2 different things every turn, and that I find is so much more fun and thematically rewarding. And now the mechanics and the fun line up. They're not opposed to each other. You're not being mechanically rewarded for doing a less interesting thing, which is what Action Economy does at the moment. The next ability of the Trollsbane Barbarian is called Violent Crescendo. This is an ability that powers up as you go through the adventuring day. It essentially collects the fate of all your nemeses that you have defeated and empowers you to strike against new ones. I wanted a mechanic that would encourage you to keep going, just one more fight, and discourage you from taking too many rests and taking long rests prematurely. I'd like to imagine a game where every character has some mechanic like this. So you have an internal balance between the resources that you've used up through the adventuring day and the power-ups that you've got by achieving certain things related to your class or subclass. How does a violent crescendo work? Okay, starting at level 3, every time you or your party slays a creature that is your nemesis, add a d8 to a pool of dice called your crescendo pool. You may not have more dice in this pool than your proficiency bonus. Once per turn, you may add the dice of this pool to the damage roll of an attack that hits your nemesis, adding to the base damage of the weapon. Okay, and I'll put in the additional ability, the additional caveat to that as well. Every time you take a short rest, you roll your crescendo pool and remove any dice from it that rolls a 1. And every time you take a long rest, you roll the pool and remove from it any dice that isn't an 8. This pretty much means your pool will reset every time you take a long rest. If you're lucky, you might get 1 or 2 dice to carry across. And there's always a risk that it diminishes during a short rest as well. At level 10, you can re-roll the dice during a short rest or a long rest. This is a straight damage boost against your nemesis. As you go through your adventuring day and take on creatures worthy of the title of nemesis, you become more powerful. And remember, you don't have to be the person that lands the killing blow. This is a team game. If your nemesis is slain, you get the bonus. Now, this is potentially quite powerful. If you look at it, a very high-level character with a proficiency bonus of 6 could be adding 6d8 damage once per turn. And this seems like a lot, but I want to take 2 things into account. 1, you need to charge this ability up by slaying nemesis-worthy targets. In games where you might only get 3 or 4 combat encounters per day, and not all of them are going to have a nemesis-worthy enemy in them, you're not going to hit the giddy heights of a full 68 damage bonus. In fact, this can be something that the games master can work with. If there is a particularly powerful enemy that the party is supposed to face, then the games master, dungeon master, might want to throw in smaller combats with a worthy target to help charge the Trollsbane Barbarian up. And I love the balance that's going on here. That the Trollsbane Barbarian is collecting these dice, becoming more powerful, and even as they're taking damage and losing other resources and the rest of the party is exhausted and run out of spell slots, you're going, come on, we can do it, we can take it, one more fight. That internal balance is wonderful for me. Now, a lot of people are just going to look at this and go, oh, 68 damage once per turn, that seems like a lot of damage. There's 2 things to remember. 1, you have to earn it, and it's not easy. And secondly, at this level, when you get to proficiency bonus 6, if you cast Booming Blade, you get to make a melee weapon attack and add 3d8 thunder damage to the hit, and then 4d8 if the target moves afterwards. And with the prevalence of the push ability in 2024's Dungeons and Dragons, it's quite easy to force enemy creatures into a position where they will want to move if they want to re-engage you. So that's 7d8 damage added to a melee weapon attack from a cantrip. So I don't have any problems with adding an ability that if you go through an entire adventuring day and take on 6 combat encounters with a worthy target in each one and slay all 6 of them, that for the 7th combat encounter, you're getting this boost once per turn. When someone with Booming Blade is getting it once per turn, starting from when they wake up in the morning. This somewhat goes to redress the balance between martial and casting characters. If you multi-class as a paladin, you can be smiting pretty frequently with similar levels of power, potentially. You'll have more smites through the day, but not all of them will be at your highest level. And the same is true for the Trollsbane Barbarian. Starting off at the day, you might not have any dice in your crescendo pool at all. And then in your first encounter, if you slay a nemesis, great. Next encounter, if there's a nemesis there, that's 1 extra dice damage applied on 1 hit once per turn. This isn't a powerful ability in terms of overkill. This is an ability that can grow in power, can be used to tell a story, and can become incredibly powerful if the games master wants it to be incredibly powerful. Because when you take a long rest, the pool goes away. Or you might get 1 or 2 dice carried over if you're lucky, but the pool's probably going to go away. I like this balance. I like pushing characters to take that extra step, to not be timid, to not take the long rest, to go for one more encounter, 1 more room in the dungeon, 1 more cave to explore. I think a violent crescendo is a fantastic ability. Now, to let you know 2 things, this is the 3rd time I've recorded this particular segment of the video because I've wanted to find just the best way to explain my thoughts. And this was actually the last ability that I added to the Trollsbane character. It's in response to a video that I made a couple of days ago, itself in response to a post by Mike Merles, who was talking about the length of the adventuring day, and that because of Nova damage, people use all their abilities really quickly, and they're at the most powerful at the start of the day. And yeah, that's true under the current rule set. Your character is most powerful when it gets out of bed in the morning. I wanted to add a mechanic that reversed that. You were at your weakest when you got out of bed in the morning, and you're at your strongest when you've used all your resources and you've gone through all the fights, and you've got this one ability that's building up, and now you have this balance. Like, I'm low on hit points, I have 1 use of rage left, my magic weapons have used all their charges, and my teammates are falling to pieces. But 1 more fight, come on, we can do it. That's what this ability is all about, and I think it sounds fun to play. Okay, finally, the 4th ability, a Tale of Woe. These are the tales of the enemies you have battled, the monster you currently seek, or the adversary that pushed you down the path of the Trollsbane. When making a performance, persuasion, or intimidation check, or another check at your DM's discretion, the DM can decide if you have invoked your Tale of Woe. And if you have, you get certain mechanical benefits, which I'll go into shortly. So, this is something to use out of combat in social situations. You are trying to talk to a guard to persuade them to let you into the town. And you can start telling the tales of the monsters that you've slain outside the gates, either to intimidate the guard into letting you in, or to say, hey, look, we're doing you a service. The least you could do is let us into the town so we can use its facilities. Great. If you invoke your Tale of Woe, you get a bonus. And this is something that I want to do. This is an ability to bring storytelling into the role-playing side and to give the Trollsbane a mechanical boost under specific circumstances. They are not going to be the party face. They cannot do this carte blanche. They don't get these benefits all the time. But if it is appropriate to the narrative and to the scene, the Dungeon Master can decide, yep, I'm going to give you a bonus. Now, what are these bonuses? Well, at level 3, you can use your strength instead of charisma. You are telling the tales as you flex your muscles and hypnotize the people with your strength. So, use strength instead of charisma for an appropriate check when talking about your Tale of Woe. Oh, I should add, at level 3, there's one additional mechanic that I wanted to bring in. I invented a rule called Rolling with Dominance a couple of weeks ago, and it was a way to give a boost that wasn't advantage. And I've ended up not using it. I'll link the video to Rolling with Dominance here somewhere. You can check it out. And I wanted to have a mechanical boost that you could give to subclasses and backgrounds that wasn't advantage, because I like the fact that advantage comes from things like environmental reasons and teamwork. And if you get advantage from a class ability, then teamwork is pointless. Or if you have advantage from teamwork, your subclass ability is pointless. And I don't like that. I like being able to reward players for good teamwork and having the right tools for the job. So I invented this rule called Roll with Dominance, and I'm not going to use it. I'm going to keep that in my pocket for backgrounds. So if you have something that aligns with your background, you might get a roll with Dominance. But for this, I wanted to have a bonus that could be applied that makes someone else helping you better than you helping someone else for the thing that is your thing. So in this case, let's say you have two characters. You've got the Trollsbane Barbarian talking about the sad tale about how his village was destroyed by a giant, and you just have a bard. A bard is going to be better at telling that story, even though it's the Trollsbane story. The bard just has the abilities and proficiencies set up. And that didn't sit right with me. So I've got this idea for a mechanic, and I want to use it in all sorts of different subclasses. But if you're doing your thing and someone assists you, you can add their ability score bonus as well as yours. So if the bard makes the check, you're not doing it, so you're not proficient, you can't help them. If you're making the check and you invoke your Tale of Woe, you are proficient. The bard's already proficient. The bard can help you, so you gain advantage. And you can add the bard's charisma ability score and your strength ability score to the check. So now, when it's your turn and it's your time to shine because you're telling your story, you're the best one to tell it. And I like that. That's fine. Again, not a huge bonus, but enough to make a decision where you go, actually, yeah, let the Barbarian tell the story this time. And again, it doesn't have to be Bard. I pick Bard because they're the charisma skill monkey. Could be anyone with a high charisma and proficiency in performance or persuasion or whatever. At level 6, you gain persuasion. You gain proficiency in persuasion, intimidation, and performance if you invoke your Tale of Woe. Now, this is what I like, because you tell the Dungeon Master what you're doing. You tell the Dungeon Master the story that you're telling, and then they can decide whether to give you the bonus or not. You've already committed down this path. You are making the skill check. You've persuaded the party, hey, I've got this. And now you have to earn these bonuses through role-playing. That's perfect for me. That's what Dungeons & Dragons really is about. It's about role-playing your character, and if you do it well, you get bonuses. If you do it poorly, you don't. So if you can invoke your Tale of Woe, you're going to get proficiency in skills you might not have proficiency in. So you get at level 3, you can use strength, and you get that little boost with when someone assists you. At level 6, you gain the proficiency bonus as well yourself. At level 10, you can, when you invoke your Tale of Woe, you can treat any skill check roll under 10 as 10. This sort of cuts out the lowest possible results. These are stories that you have told so many times, they are ingrained upon your very soul. You know how to tell these stories. And finally, at level 14, you may double your strength bonus for these skill checks when invoking your Tale of Woe. You are now a master storyteller. You go into a tavern and you sing the tale of how you defeated the Hydra of Hyderabad. People are going to stop and listen. It's going to be a memorable experience. So, that's the Trollsbane. 4 different skeins of abilities. Your nemesis is a monster that you are better at hunting, better at fighting, more resistant to. A shared doom is a mechanical reason to not just focus on one target all the time. A violent crescendo is an ability that powers up through the day, makes you better at fighting, and stops you wanting to take a rest. Just keep on going, one more fight. And a Tale of Woe is a storytelling element that helps the Barbarian tell the story of the monsters they've defeated, their tragic tale, or the story of what they're hunting. That is the kind of character that I want to play in Dungeons and Dragons. So, PDF is linked in the video description. Please check it out. Give it a go. If you have any feedback on the rule mechanics, on the way things are written, I would be very happy. This is the first subclass that I'm publishing, and so feedback is going to be really helpful for me. When I get to play Dungeons & Dragons 2024 edition, I am going to ask my Dungeon Master if I can play whatever the latest version of the Trollsbane is. So please let me know what you think, and enjoy your next game, whatever it may be.